This is what hunger does to a 3-year-old child. Michu weighs little more than a newborn baby. Malnutrition and malaria have stripped the flesh from her bones, and she probably won't survive.
He's thirsty, I know, but otherwise he won't.
In this small clinic, there are dozens of starving children, and across the country, millions need emergency food aid. Almost a quarter of a century after we first saw the horror of hunger in Ethiopia, a new famine's underway.
It's quite hard to see what's happening. There is a lot of malnourished children that are arriving in a very, very severe state. In this center, we only take the children that are malnourished plus medical complications. The ones that are only malnourished, we have to send them home with food. And then there is some that don't fulfill the criteria. Even if they look very, very thin, we have to send them home without food because we only take the very severe.
This little girl, 3-year-old Bassa, is thin, but not thin enough to qualify for treatment. The situation is explained to her father, but he can't understand why they won't help his child.
They're very severely malnourished. Maybe next week they can come back. Next week they can come back. And
his desperation is obvious. He doesn't have enough money to buy food.
Probably she will get thinner. That's why we also ask to the parents to try and look after the child. If she gets sick, if she gets thinner, to come back and to not wait too long.
But she's just not sick enough.
Not for the stabilization center.
The aid agencies operating here are doing what they can, but their resources are limited. This is the crowd that gathered in just one village when word spread that food rations were being handed out. Parents with weak children taking their place in the queue. It's taken months for the Ethiopian government to face up to the scale of this crisis. Only this week did the Prime Minister finally admit that 4.5 million of his people require emergency food aid. And that delay in crying for help could cost thousands of lives here. Ethiopia has been hit hard by rising food prices and periods of drought. The crops being sown now won't be ready to eat for months, and the massive amount of food aid already flowing into the country is no longer enough. Back in the clinic, we found Medina with her 8-month-old son. She had 2 children, but one has already died of malnutrition, and Dube is just clinging to life. Because they can't afford to buy the food?
Yes.
1 million died in Ethiopia's last major famine. This is not on that scale, but the United Nations says more than 100,000 children are at serious risk. Their government might have done more to protect them, but it's hard to know who's really to blame for this in a world where most of us throw food away. Emma Hurd, Sky News in Ethiopia.